Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you happen to be, and welcome to a special episode of the Angry Astronaut that has currently been taken over by Total Space Network. I have only one representative of this organization with me at the moment, but that's going to be changing as time goes on. We have Gemma, who is known to my Discord supporters as Mrs Warhawk. Warhawk was a fellow who's been part of my supporter network. One of my Patreon was one of my Patreon supporters when I had less than 1,000 subscribers. He was one of the biggest supporters of my channel ever and introduced me to some people that helped my channel take off. Frankly, my channel wouldn't be here without him, without the people he knows. So as a result, we are doing a collaborative episode, and Warhawk sadly has passed away. So this is being done in his memory, and we have kind of a a mixed theme involved here, both in terms of topic and in terms of our objectives. Our objectives, one of these things is to help folks out. Gemma, as a result of the crises that she's gone through, is certainly in need of support. So I'm helping to fundraise for her. At the same time, I'm currently suffering from some mysterious ailment that's affecting my jaw, and it's not a tooth problem. So I'm going in on Monday to get some differential diagnosis, as Dr. House would say. So in any event, got a little fundraising going on too. If anybody's interested in supporting the channel, this will be split between us, but that is, of course, entirely up to you. A like and subscribe would be very much appreciated no matter what, especially a subscribe over at Total Space. These guys interview a lot of big names in the space industry. They've interviewed, I think, more people than I have, and they really have a good insight into what's going on in the private space industry, especially in regards to what's going on in Europe, because the vast majority of them are in Europe. I believe Gemma may be the only one who isn't in Europe. Or let's see, is Static Fire gal Gemma is she in Europe?
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay. So in any event, in the Philippines. Okay, in the Philippines. So yeah, it's a very international organization, Total Space. Unlike me, they're a group of people, a group of space aficionados. And thank you, Anton. You are so fantastic. Always are coming through for my channel and I'm sure for others. I appreciate your generosity. Okay, yeah, cardiac is, yeah, something. I have a feeling, actually, I saw an episode of House where that ended up being the case. That's a frightening thought, to say the least, if that is indeed what that is, because in that episode of House, it killed the guy before they diagnosed it. So yeah, I certainly, because there is no abscess, there's nothing wrong with the teeth, but antibiotics help. What causes something that feels like an abscess and yet does not show any signs of an abscess and is helped by antibiotics? That is, but not eliminated by antibiotics, just eased. So it's a strange thing, and I have to admit, there's a little bit of it has me a little disconcerted, but that's not what I'm here to talk about at all. I'm here to talk about two major things, and I want to start off with GAO. And by the way, my Discord supporters, you can feel free to make your comments independently. That's never been a problem, and that's under the Ask Your Questions with Tech section under Angry Live. Ask your questions with text. So go ahead and go there if you want to go ahead and ask your questions there, and I'll be checking that as well. So yeah, we've all got the great news, right, from the GAO. Yay, Artemis gets to move forward. I think anybody who watches my channel knows that I think that I've always thought that two competitors would be a better idea, as long as one of those damn competitors wasn't Blue Origin. But at the same time, holding up Artemis while this went through the American legal process was simply unacceptable. And so we need to move forward. I'm glad the decision's been made to move forward, but unfortunately, as I've thought more about this since I released my video on the topic and the announcement was made, it's an interesting coincidence that Director Edwards has made that statement that he wants there to be a second competitor and he wants Congress to fund it. And that's an entirely different story with an entirely different contract. And it's an interesting coincidence that the difference between the amount of money that SpaceX got up front from NASA, $195 million, versus the nearly $600 million that the national team got, plus $2 billion from Jeff Bezos, almost amounts to that $2.9 billion difference between that $2.9 billion head start that SpaceX now has over everybody else over the sustainable contract, which is the next thing coming up. So that is one of my biggest concerns right now, to say the least. So all that having been said, yeah, to be a competitor, you have to compete. You need to have a better product or better prices than your adversaries. And yeah, I would say without question that as far as better product is concerned, SpaceX has the better product. It's fully 100% reusable. That's the huge advantage right there. It's already in its early stages of development. It's already taken off from the pad. There's a lot of things that's already been done with it. So as far as product is concerned, it's just a better ship than what Blue Origin has. Really, Dynetics has the only one that actually does compete, and they're substantially more expensive. So the decision is obvious. Boom, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. I agree. No surprise. Plastic Pinocchio, 2.29 euros. Thank you so much. SN20 Orbital Launch Fund. Thank you. I really do appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to being there. So, Jonah, tell me, but how is Warhawk feeling about this whole competition that was going on, this debate that was going on with the government accounting office? Did he talk about it a lot?
No, not a whole lot. He thought the government was he wanted to be dictator, but he thought that the government wasn't doing enough as far as helping people get off this planet. So he thought the money was wise to go to SpaceX, but he wasn't really crazy about Blue Origin because their mission is different, just to make space available for rich people.
Yeah, I mean, that is obviously, how they've been moving for quite some time. I mean, I've always felt that way about them. Given these huge, massive, idyllic space cities that they're building or want to build, these are their views of the future. I'm not seeing what they're talking about is exporting heavy industry off the planet, the things that cause damage to the planet. But what they're showing us is this beautiful, idyllic space city, that anybody would want to live in. That seems like more like a domain for the rich while the planet goes to hell. And yeah, that may sound a little like a certain science fiction movie that I'm very fond of, but at the same time, I would definitely agree. Yes, gentle reminder, please hit the thumbs up, please hit those likes, please subscribe if you have not already subscribed. Really do appreciate you guys participating in the support that we've been receiving thus far. Thank you so much. Bezos needs to give us something orbital first. You're right, Probus. He hasn't given us a damn thing. I mean, the one thing I could say about Dynetics is that they have given the U.S. government a lot in the way of military systems that work. You know, at least they've provided the government with some results for money invested. You can't say that with Blue Origin. The only thing they've produced is something that generates money for themselves, and that's New Shepard. That's the only thing that they have successfully put out thus far, and not cool. That's just not cool. With Bezos is about making money. Yeah, pretty much. I would agree with that. Even the more recent, more recent offer that he made, $2 billion up front may sound like a hell of a lot of money, but when you consider that the National Ripoff Team's lander is 2/3 non-reusable, you need a new transfer element and a new lander every time you need to land on the moon. Not only does that require 2 additional commercial launches, it also requires that you build a new transfer element and a new lander every time you want to go back to the moon. And if we want to go to the moon to stay, that's a hell of a lot of transfer elements and a hell of a lot of landers that are going to be manufactured. Therefore, a ton of money for Blue Origin, especially since Blue Origin are the ones who build the lander, one of the non-reusable portions of it. They actually, ironically, don't make the reusable portion of the lander, which, seems ridiculous since they made such a big deal about how the fact that they pioneered reusability and all this stuff, and yet that is not the case. Does this mean that Bezos and the Osmonds will merge? Jude, I hope to hell not. I really hope not. Bezos will destroy Sierra Nevada if that happens. I hope that they want their independence too desperately in order to do something like that. I'm a fan of those two merging. It seems that Sierra Nevada is more intent on aligning themselves with ULA, not with Blue Origin. That seems to be their intentions. Well, thank you, by the way. I'm sorry. Is it Magina? I think that's how it's or is it Marina? I'm sorry. I have a hard time reading Cyrillic sometimes, but somebody said something nice about me, so I do appreciate that. And Rich has just joined us. Rich from Total Space is also with us as well. He was a bit late in arriving, but always a fantastic supporter to this channel. Welcome, Rich.
Hello, everybody. Rich here from Total Space.
But by the way, in case you guys were wondering what those little things are in the top left of our screens, there are coffee cups. Our coffee is slowly being consumed as we have our Saturday coffee discussing this. And yes, for once, I am not using a Blue Origin mug. I'm using a Mars mug just because I can't bring myself to do it. But it's here. It's here and ready to be destroyed. It will be destroyed once I hit 90,000 subscribers. But right now, my focus is on Total Space. Let's get over to that channel. Let's subscribe and check out their stuff. They've got some top-notch work to check out. They think the astronaut should be a spokesman. Pardon me? Yes. Yes, just to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the broadcast, because some of you folks may be arriving a bit late. This is a fundraising effort, first and foremost for JAMA, who is Mrs Warhawk, as we call her. Warhawk was a huge supporter of my channel for quite some time, and is in need of some support right now. So we're doing a fundraiser for her, and it's kind of a combined fundraiser because I am currently suffering from a bit of an issue issue with some jaw pain that nobody can figure out or diagnose right now. So we're kind of doing a combined fundraising in that regard. We've received some support already. So thank you so much for doing that. And we'll just keep it going. And by the way, if you want to go to the links in my description, there is a GoFundMe for JAMA. GoFundMe, so you can write that off on your taxes. Okay. Let's see. Maybe if Bezos put on a parachute. Let's see. Bezos should have to wear the spacesuit and prove that the ladder is safe. I would agree with that. I think that they should try to do it just here on Earth. I mean, yeah, sure. 1/6 gravity should make it easier, but okay, let's maybe lighten the load. Don't make the suit quite as heavy as it would be on the moon or something like that, and just see how easy it is to maneuver that thing without. Ridiculous. Okay, it is Marina. Cool. All right. Well, really do. I'm glad I got my Cyrillic right. So, Rich, what do you think about the GAO decision? I've been kind of talking about how I don't think that it's an ending to the process because that $2 billion is kind of coincidentally the difference between the amount of money that SpaceX is being offered at the first part of this contract and the difference between how much they were offered up front. $195 million for SpaceX and over $500 million for the national team. There really isn't a whole lot of difference if you throw in that extra money, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, so for instance, recently we saw a tweet from Scott Manley saying that that the national team definitely got more money than SpaceX did. They had over 549 million, I think, if I remember rightly. And so there was that recently, and also this whole protest thing. I don't know. The whole thing just doesn't sit right with me. I can't tell if it's some kind of stunt in order to try and pony up more money from the government, in which case it failed. But I honestly can't tell. Like I don't know what the heck is going on right now with that thing. Like we've seen the result of the GAO protest. They've basically thrown it out, and they've said SpaceX is the sole award still. Even though Blue Origin, before that announcement came out, had offered themselves to pony up money for completing the Blue Moon lander. So where it goes from here, God only knows.
One thing that I said in my video about the topic that I released, I guess it was yesterday, the day before yesterday, something like that, was the fact that I didn't think that this bribe has anything to do with the GAO decision. I believe that that Bezos realized that ship had sailed, but he also realizes that there is a sustainable aspect, kind of a supplementary part of this contract for a sustainable lander that doesn't have to be the same provider. So his argument was that now that SpaceX got the $2.9 billion head start, that the sustainable lander, nobody will be able to compete because they're not going to be able to provide enough money. But now that he's thrown in $2 billion into the mix, plus he started out with more money to begin with, it would be quite easy actually for him to now compete on a price basis with SpaceX for this sustainable project that's coming up. That's kind of what I think his strategy is future plan.
Sorry, I just saw somebody in your chat there saying that they hadn't actually heard what the final decision was yet, and they were asking what was it. Effectively, the GAO had concurred that SpaceX will still be the sole award of the HLS contract. Effectively, so the status quo remains the same.
The only silver lining, if you're a Blue Origin or Dynetics fan, whatever, and you want this thing to continue, which I don't, even though I like Dynetics, I don't want this fight to continue. Is the fact that number one, they said that it was not an assessment of the technical merits of the proposals. They said that they had no opinion on that. So whether or not, NASA's claim that, SpaceX had the best technical solution or the best overall solution was irrelevant. Their job is just simply to make sure that the contract was carried out in a legal and proper manner, which it was. And so what concerns me is the fact that Administrator Nelson, the day before, announces that he wants to get, more money from Congress for a second lander. He knew, there's no doubt in my mind, he knew what the GAO decision was going to be on the 29th. And so I think that there is no coincidence to the timing of what he said. I think that that he is fishing for more money from Congress for an additional lander, and this GAO decision paints Congress into a corner. If they want this to happen, if they want lander number 2, then they're going to have to pony up the money. Seems like a strategy to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just gonna have to be the way forward. But as time goes on, we may see shifting temperaments in Congress. As we see more and more successes out there in our goal towards getting into space and getting back to the moon, we might see the mood change as we see those successes. It's like when you see something and it looks great. It looks great on paper, and all of a sudden, yes, let's have more of that thing. So, like, when they run the presses saying, oh, we've landed on the moon, blah, 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 we're back there to stay, here we go, here's a moon base. And it's just, once you've got that and the public opinion starts to change, then that's going to be, that's going to be the catalyst then to try, to get more public funding for these things.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, a lot of this is, part of this is something I wanted to emphasize. We still pretty much are in a race. If Bezos wants to, it's perfectly within his power to continue development of the national team's lander for the next 2 years, throwing in his own money to do so. He can do it anyway. And he wasn't even asking to be the exclusive choice regardless. So he could still do it. He could still keep developing it with $2 billion of his own money and then, try to show a result. Say, hey, look, this is what we've done in 2 years, So it's going to be a matter of how far along is SpaceX going to be with on-orbital refueling and life support for Starship and so many other things that are going to be absolutely vital for lunar Starship to work versus national team and where they're going to be in the process. But I think it's still very much a race. I don't see Bezos giving up no matter what the GAO said.
Well, it's very much down to the man himself at the end of the day. Is he going to put the nail in the coffin in Blue Moon and call it a day? Or are they that far down the pipeline now that, well, that they're in now, so they might as well finish, kind of thing,
By the way, Johnny Spacer just threw in a $50 super chat. You are the man. Thank you so much. That makes so much difference in the world to myself and to Gemma. This is a huge thing. Let me tell you. There are YouTubers out there who are millionaires and love to flaunt their wealth, and I'll tell you, neither of us are amongst those.
No.
So anything you guys help us out with makes a huge difference. Let me tell you. But enough of that. Let's continue to move on. We have some more comments coming in here. Jeff Bezos and his Blue Balls lander will never go to the moon. Yeah, I'm thinking that I'm thinking very much the same thing. To be honest, it looks like we just got joined by someone else, although I'm not positive. So in any event, whoever's just jumped in, feel free at any time. Let's see here. So it's we have a fan of Judd Gossard saying, I like Alpaca and Dream Chaser. I want them out there somehow. You know what? And well, obviously I like Alpaca too. It's what my dream is to see Alpaca go to the moon and build landing pads for lunar Starship. That's what I would like to see. Something much lighter, something that consumes less fuel and therefore stirs up less regolith. I had a conversation not that long ago, an interview with Matt Coons about that. Covering, the impact of stirring up a lot of lunar regolith or something. A smaller ship building a landing pad for lunar starships. A lunar starship can bring in the big stuff, bring in the big, lunar settlements, lunar base, lots of solar panels, or whatever that a lunar base is going to require. Lunar starship does that, and I think they'll do it a lot better on a landing pad rather than in regolith. What's your opinion on that? Oh, I apologize. I got everything split up. I apologize. Opinions all around. I'm sorry. Opinions all around.
So, my take on it is this: even though SpaceX may be the sole GAO award now, there's nothing stopping any future revisit to either of these projects. Even if Dynetics want to take it on themselves if they feel they can, or if not, just put it on the shelf. And there might be an opportunity at some point in the future to bring the Dynetics one into action because it might need to serve a purpose. Yeah, just because we haven't seen them being chosen now doesn't mean we won't see future uses for them down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think there needs to be, some variety. I think there just isn't. We'd like to think that, and I've made a number of videos about this. That Starship is kind of a catch-all solution for everything, but I just don't think that it is. I think that there are certain ships that can serve that purpose better. Just my opinion, though. And sorry about that, Rich. I had Matt Coons on my mind there for a second. So it was kind of hard to not. I'll tell you that was quite a conversation. A guy with 5 patents, and he's a National Geographic published photographer, and everything else that guy has achieved in what 20 years. He's 20 years younger than me, I think. So, oh wow, there's one came in from Ticey Bear. Thank you for the 10 quid. Really do appreciate it. Wow. Thank you so much for the participation. We will indeed stay angry. So here's something else that I'd like to put out there then. Let's talk about, the 10 billion. Let's say that Congress says, all right, this GAO thing's over now. So if we want a second, if we want a second lander, and we want all these jobs across all these states, because Jeff was very sure to make sure to mention that his solution offers jobs in 47 different states. That was like a really clear message that he was sending to Congress, not to Administrator Nelson. I think that given the fact that, Jeff is in a condition or to throw out billions of his own money to stay in the game, but nobody else is. They have a whole new contract coming out right now for sustainable presence on the moon. But given the fact that Jeff has billions of his own money as a head start, and SpaceX won that first contract, so they have $3 billion as a head start, it seems to me that this $10 billion should be out there so that if there is another innovative solution out there, they have a fair chance of going for it rather than starting out $3 billion behind. What are your feelings?
So I do have feelings towards this one, but it's going to come in the form of some totally different information. In the UK, we have the UK Space Agency, who currently have, I think it's now, hang on, I might be getting this not right. UK Space Agency or the European Space Agency, one of the two. No, I think it is the UK Space Agency. They have an open call for solutions for orbital debris removal. Okay? And the way it works is they take a pot of money and they put it down and they go, right, Anybody that comes to us with viable working solutions on how to take debris out of orbit, you can apply for funding from this pot, right? Now, this open call method is really great because it breeds competition and innovation within the
Yeah.
market. And all of these new little startups coming up in the UK, they're all going to put in bids for this. The ones that have experience with this sort of things, that have the teams, the resources, the ability to be able to do it. And I believe that having an open pot like this and an open call saying, right, best idea gets funding. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I mean, and when it comes down to it, you lot in the UK don't have a billionaire founder at all. A lot of people like to look at Virgin Orbit as being a British company. It is not. Richard Branson may be British, but he lives in the United States. So that's not a billionaire founded company. So these British startups, none of them have piles of money to be working with. So having a pot is absolutely necessary. When I interviewed Black Arrow, I just asked their CEO, if you got $1 billion a year, the way Jeff plugs $1 billion a year into Blue Origin, how fast would you be in orbit? He said 2 years, no problem. 2 years, and he says, and I would have extra money to form a new foundation to encourage additional innovation in the UK. I mean, we just don't know here in the US how lucky we are, how much money our space initiatives get compared to everybody else. It's just night and day. It really is.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that with newer generations now seeing all of these things happening, the space industry is super crazy busy right now in a way that we haven't seen in a long time. And it is getting people excited. Kids are going to have watched like Demo 2 when that went up with Launch America. Tell me that didn't inspire people across the world, you know? So this is the generation that's going to be growing up now with space being in the forefront of their minds. And hopefully this is going to really change the world, really, in terms of public opinions, putting more public funding into space programs that will see tangible returns for us here on Earth. Like modular homes, building modular homes for, things that we would do on Mars can be brought back here to Earth and used here, you know? So it's
Could
a
be more exciting.
no-brainer.
Yeah, I think one of the more obvious examples are some of the modular home ideas, 3D printed homes that have been conceived on Mars, those ideas for building those sorts of houses on Mars. Some of those already exist here. Some of them have already been built here as extremely energy efficient homes, because after all, if it's a home that's supposed to resist the rigors of the Martian environment, then it's going to be pretty environmentally efficient. So yeah, it's some really cool stuff going on. No question, Jem. I think you would agree that back when we were in high school age and stuff like that, it was pretty much all about the space shuttle and whatever the Russians were doing, right? I mean, we didn't hear about anything else.
Right. Well, my mother worked on the Mercury project. She transposed the rocket science stuff from Cornell University. And so she was always excited about space. And I had to watch NASA stuff, and we had to watch everything that you could get, not like you can get everything now. But so I've always been interested in it, not like Mike was, unfortunately. I don't get the technical part, but I think kids right now need to be excited about the sciences, all the sciences. And I think this is a push to get them to do that.
It certainly seems that way to me. It's beyond exciting. One of my old friends back in high school, he went to MIT to study propulsion in the 80s, with the idea of going to space, with the idea of being involved in space. But it came right at the end of the Cold War. And because space was all about, 10-20% science and 80% militarization in those days, there were no jobs. But the situation is totally different now. A new MIT graduate has lots of choices all over the planet, and that makes a massive difference. Quick shout out, by the way, to Mars Embassy, who just gave us $10. Great support from a great channel. Mars Embassy does lots of photography and filming in Boca Chica. He's been living there for about a year now, I think. Living pretty much on borrowed time when it comes down to it. I know it's not easy surviving down there. So in any event, the fact that he's still down there and still documenting what's happening is some very cool stuff. And he's got his own channel too. So Mars Embassy, Total Space. I'm a big fan of both channels. Please support him. And once again, to reiterate, a little bit of fundraising going on with some people who made some incredibly generous donations for Gemma in the aftermath of her tragedy and some of the financial struggles she's going through and some medical issues that I myself am going through. So we're kind of splitting whatever happens today. I know I've mentioned this a couple of times, but people do tend to join halfway through. So I thought I would make another mention of it real quick. Okay, we'll keep it going. Keep it going. By the way, I'm going to be talking a little bit about German innovation here real soon. A lot of stuff happening there and some exciting things to say the least. Rich, you got anything to say about that? Because I know you guys have a little bit of connection over at Total Space.
Repeat that last part again. Sorry, you broke up a little bit.
Germans, the German private spaceflight.
Drawing a blank.
There's something they had and maybe this is something else. There's a launch going on in Sweden. Did you guys have any connection to that, or is that something else? If it is, then I got confused. But in any event, there's I'm doing an episode on German startups.
Yeah, right, okay.
I was rather surprised to see that there was some funding given to the Germans seem to be investing funding in the privatization of spaceflight there as well, which is competing, directly with what has been which has been the monopoly of Europe, which is Ariane.
So I think what you were referring to before was I had spent some time prior to being on Total Space. This is a while ago now, back when I was a researcher. I was a researcher for a company that we used to go to Germany and work out of the Fraunhofer Focus Research Institute. So I've worked alongside German researchers at quite a high level, and I can tell you those guys, like, they're really good. They're really, really good at what they do. So if you have some people out there pumping money into German privatization, you're going to see some very interesting things come out of that. I can tell you that.
Hold on, this is starting to bother me here because I was just looking at it yesterday. So I'll figure it out at some point. And we can. Oh yeah, here they are. Hold on. Why does this not? I tell you, they say a German rocket company is seeking to disrupt things, and then they're saying they don't know who it. Oh, it's ISAR. Is it ISAR? In any event, ISAR Aerospace recently received some funding for a launch. Their capabilities are small sat related. But they have the capability of taking triple the amount of mass to low Earth orbit that Rocket Lab does, double the amount that Virgin Orbit can do. So pretty impressive stuff. And for only about $12 million per launch is what they're looking at. So in any event, they're kind of they're being a bit disruptive as well, which is some cool stuff. So in any event, upcoming episode, something you may want to look at as well. But yeah, that's they definitely have something going on.
Yeah, I just took a brief look at that right now. That's some pretty impressive hardware.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
it's
actually,
so much happening
we've got
everywhere.
a person in chat here, Jude Dornish. Don't forget India also. I recently tweeted about this. The ESA and the ISRO got together and had talks. They had Joseph Aspaker, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name, over in talks with ISRO, looking to do some future collaborations. So I'm looking forward to see what kind of collaborations we're going to see there, whether they're going to make some contributions to ISRO's Gaganyaan project, or whether there's going to be some other kind of collaboration in the works.
Yes, and I know very little about that particular topic. I'm embarrassed to say. I really try to diversify my knowledge of. It's one of the reasons why I concentrated so much on the Hope mission from the United Arab Emirates. Because it really wasn't getting a lot of press, and it's currently orbiting Mars and sending photographs back nonstop. By the way, do you ever see them? I don't. And yet you have to actually physically go into Twitter, oftentimes, plowing through stuff in Arabic just to find their photos. But there's tons of stuff coming back from that probe. It's been very interesting. I need to do another episode about them, I guess.
It's okay, Angry. That makes us 1-for-1 now, because I hadn't heard of the German thing either. So,
I don't
So,
know about anything.
Sovereign Soul, by the way, just sent us a super chat. I am so grateful for that. Thank you. With the question, how comfortable do you think the UK government will be using nuclear rocket engines? They will be very comfortable, and the reason for that is the Rolls-Royce company has made it very public that they intend to develop nuclear thermal propulsion technology, and this is running and coinciding with their micronuclear reactor technology, the types of nuclear reactors that they intend to use in smaller communities across the world, from Africa to the Middle East to South America, everywhere. Just because a smaller nuclear reactor running off of low-grade uranium, which cannot be weaponized, is far more efficient and can run for years and years and years without having to be refueled, whereas a lot of these small communities run off of diesel generators. And those are crazy. They cost so much money to fuel. And of course, environmentally, they're not very friendly either. So yeah, the Rolls-Royce is definitely taking the lead on the nuclear thermal propulsion field. So thanks for bringing that up.
That's awesome.
Robert De La Cruz, a one-time donation to JAMA can be found right in my links in the description. It's one of the first things that I have in there for a GoFundMe. That's one of the best ways to get funding directly to her, is to go to the GoFundMe and make a contribution.
Thank everybody.
All right. Let's see. My gripe with India is that they've been given hundreds of millions of aid from other countries get spend money on space exploration. Yeah, Stewie, it's always been a state of, a state of, it's controversial because so many people in India live in the worst squalor that you could imagine. I understand that. So many people suffer so terribly in that country. Hell, thousands and thousands of people are killed by poisonous snakes every year because they have to sleep on the floor, right where these things crawl. It's terrible. And yet, they're spending money on space. But one of the differences, I think, is the more money they put into space exploration and the privatization of space, the more high-tech jobs that is going to create, the more of a need that's going to create for education in their country, and the more educated their country gets, the better jobs their country gets, and the more their country can pull themselves out of their squalor. Because it's just, you can give people as much foreign aid as you want, but until they're an educated populace that can, hold down a good paying job, they're never going to escape that environment, in my opinion. It's just how I feel about it. Any other views?
No, I agree with you totally. Education and understanding other cultures.
Definitely.
You know,
100%.
The coffee's running low, but I'm getting through it definitely. We did start a bit late, so I'm going to push a bit longer than I usually do, just to make sure everybody gets their say. Bear with me for just one moment. I think I may have fallen behind a bit on some your questions. Okay. Darth Rust quite some time ago said that $2 billion BO graciously gave back was the upfront payment that the government specifically disallowed twice. Good point. And the pricing was until appropriations can catch up. That is how it is quoted exactly in that letter, meaning that they still want more than what's budgeted. Doesn't really matter, though. The open letter was a PR stunt and not an actionable offer. I agree with all that, Darth, definitely. Airborne Bob says alpaca needs BE4 engine. Yes, let's put the engine that they can never fix. That is the one good thing about alpaca, is that they're using a different form of propulsion.
I think if BE4 engines went on alpaca before ULA got a hold of them, Mr. Bruno wouldn't be very happy.
No. I think he would be a very angry individual. That's just a whole issue that has me so angry, because I do like the idea of the Vulcan Centaur, the reusable second stage, using it as a tug, using it as a fuel depot, so many cool things about, and the reusable engine. All of these concepts that they have for the Vulcan are so innovative, and it's all sabotaged by Blue Origin. I mean, is there anything these guys can't screw up? It's really starting to annoy me. The only thing they can't screw up is suborbital flight. Oh boy, what did we do that 70 years ago? I mean, I don't get it. I really don't get it. Craig Bryant asked, have I heard of a scientist, David Adair? Have either of you? I have not. At least if I have, I've forgotten. I would need to be Craig, I would need to be enlightened on that. So yeah, it is impressive. India got their Mars probe into orbit on the first try. I would agree, and very much the case. What I think about the moon base building a mass driver to launch supplies to Mars, etc. Mass drivers on the moon, I've always been in favor of that. I think that it's a perfectly good solution to getting cargo, materials, or whatever you need off the moon without the use of chemical rockets. I think it's an excellent solution. The only thing that scares me a little bit is really powerful mass drivers can be weaponized. But then I guess perhaps I've been reading too much of The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, which is one of my favorite stories, but and where something like that was used as a weapon. But still, yeah, I'm very much in favor of the concept. I think it's great.
So, having looked it up, David Adair was a child prodigy who made a bunch of rockets at age 11, and I believe it was by age 17. One moment. Age 17, he won the most outstanding in the field of engineering services award from the U.S. Air Force.
Wow.
Well, those are some incredible accomplishments. Obviously, there's so many, I'll tell you, there are so many geniuses in this field. And the fact of the matter is they're getting to do things now. It used to be that if you didn't get a job at NASA or the ESA, then you had nowhere to go. And unless you wanted to defect behind the Iron Curtain, there was nothing else you could do. And now the opportunities are out there. It's just awesome.
When Mike and I went to Boca Chica, we went close to when they had a job fair. It was either before or after. And the local people were telling us about the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that lined up at that facility there. You've been there.
Yeah.
It's not a huge place, but lined up there for interviews to submit applications or whatever they were doing.
I've spoken to their employees, one of whom had actually worked for Blue Origin for a year or so before they came over. Said that Blue Origin was one of the most unmotivated and depressing places that she had ever worked. and that's why she went over to SpaceX. And I can understand that. I mean, you just I don't even know why. If you've seen that film they put out of the mock-up of the new Glenn, that factory floor looks lonely as hell. I mean, seriously, there's nothing on that factory floor except for that mock-up. What are you doing with all that space? It's sad. So I don't get it. With all that money, I just don't understand why more is not happening. I mean, some people say, "Oh, $1 billion a year, it's not that much." I know so many companies that would do so much with $1 billion a year. I just don't understand what they're up to. It is bizarre.
Well, hopefully more people with money will invest in younger people with ideas.
So Marina just said our Ukrainian space agency got some space program for the next 5 years. They plan to have budget and investments. I hope our corrupt officials do not put their hands into their budget. That's very good to hear, Marina. I'm very thrilled to hear about that because the last thing that I had heard about Ukrainian space efforts is when the Ukrainians and the Russians and Boeing were working together on space launch, and they actually accomplished quite a bit of big things. But unfortunately, as you know better than I do, Marina, the situation between the Ukraine and Russia is awful, and that's why the whole thing fell apart. And it is unfortunate because it would have been great if those two nations have been able to do something together, but it's not worked out that way. In any event, I really, really hope that things improve for the future, and I feel for your people. I really do. I've done a lot of reading about that current conflict, and I feel for you. I really do. It's terrible, and I hope things change. Craig Bryant just sent in a super chat. Thank you so much. There's a video of him talking about working with NASA. One rewards. Look into him. I will indeed, and it talks about Neil Armstrong and his family. It sounds like a fascinating thing. I would be more than interested, no question at all. If it weren't for SpaceX, Pooh Origin would look fairly normal, says Digital Nomad. But I look at some of these other companies, like for example, I look at Rocket Lab. And I look at Virgin Orbit. I mean, yeah, Virgin Orbit has a billionaire founder, but Richard Branson has less than 5% of the money that Jeff has. Seriously, I mean, it's more like 3.5% of his money. And yet, he has not only created a space tourism company, he's created a small sat company that has gotten satellites into orbit successfully twice now. So look at all that they've accomplished with a lot less. And so that's just and they're not the only one. There are plenty of outfits out there that have gotten to orbit with a whole lot less support, and that is what I find to be unacceptable. I don't. I wish I had something good to say about it. I tried. I tried one time to say, hey, the BE-4 is going to make the Vulcan into an awesome rocket, and then a few weeks later, I was like having to eat my words on that. So yeah, that was disappointing to say the least. Okay, I understand how people feel when these countries sending India in case of hundreds of millions, and then India sending up rockets too. Yeah, it is true. I mean, if you're expecting your money to be spent on feeding the poor, and instead it's going to space agencies, yeah, I can see that being disappointing. Definitely. Okay, let's see here. We have about another 5 minutes or so to talk. If you folks are open to it, was there anything else that the either of you had in your agendas that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, me?
Either of you.
You got something, Jamie?
No, not at all. I'm just here for the fundraiser that Angry set up, and I really appreciate it. You guys got to talk to Mike in the last days that he was around. I got to see how each one of you affected him. So I want to thank you for the wonderful hours and days and hours of truly joyous time that he had. I think you kept him alive.
deeply honored. I don't know what to say besides that. I just, I never in my life did I imagine that what I do would have any kind of significant impact on anybody.
Well, it really
So I'm
did.
very, very thankful that it did.
It
Yeah.
really did. He appreciated Lab Padre and the camera. I would find him watching it at all days and nights. I'm really glad he got to go to SpaceX and see. I'm just really thankful for all of you people in the space community. He was especially close to Aaron at Total Space and Rich and Miko and you, Angry, at the end. You guys were all he thought about. So it was great. It kept his mind going and his thoughts happy, and I appreciate it.
And he had the most heartiest laugh you could ever imagine.
Yes.
Love to end on that. I must bring up one thing. One commenter just mentioned appropriately that I did put Nauka into this, and we really haven't said anything about it. I'll say something briefly, kind of my own view on it. The fact of the matter is, the Russians did have a long time to develop this thing, and yet it was done raggedly, I would say, and with a lot of issues that could have gone a lot worse. If you have a large module firing its thrusters crazily and pushing a station out of position, that can have a lot of unforeseen consequences. So that was unacceptable what happened. At the same time, though, we must also remember, for one, space is hard. Says that. Number two, the Starliner didn't even get close to the ISS, and I'm glad that it didn't, because NASA subsequently found 84 corrective actions to be taken with Starliner, and if it had somehow miraculously been able to dock with the station, who knows what it would have done afterwards, and what consequences it might have brought to the station. So I don't, like I say, Nauka certainly is a troubled module, and the Russians could have done a much better job with it. But at the same time, they're certainly not the only ones who have had issues. Any other comments as far as that's concerned before we close?
Well, the only thing I'd like to say about it is I am so glad that everybody inside the ISS is absolutely fine and that they were able to correct the pitch angle. We're just lucky that the Nauka ran out of go-go juice, pretty much. Because you've got pressure exerting from one side and they're trying to fire the progress thrusters to rebalance the station. That's a lot of strain on an old girl, So, it is what it is. It's happened now. Everyone's safe. And we've got some extra room on the ISS. So
It's a great deal that's been added, actually. Crew quarters for another cosmonaut. So the ISS, I think, has some good days ahead of it as a result of adding this module. It was rough, but hopefully in a year's time or so, we won't even be thinking about it. A last second support came popping in from Craig Bryant. How can I send you a video of David Adair? You can watch him talk about what he has done. I love your videos. At times, I wish I could post 5 to 10 days. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Craig. I'll tell you what I will do. I will put my business email into the description as soon as all of this is done, so you can send that to me. And if anybody else have anything else to say?
No, I'm good. If I say anything more, I'll cry.
All right. This has been an honor and a pleasure to spend some time with you folks in many different ways. You and also the folks behind the scenes at Total Space who are not with us right now. have contributed tremendously to the success of my channel. I owe you guys a great deal. I encourage everybody to go over to Total Space to subscribe and to support that channel, and also please, if you can, help Gemma out. And she, like I said, she has the GoFundMe on there. Any support we could receive at all would be greatly appreciated. So until this whole thing with the HLS, this whole drama associated with this critical part of Artemis is finally over, until we can finally put this in our rear view mirror and move forward to man returning to the moon to stay, I urge all of you to stay angry. Space.